You sit in a bare rented room and the walls keep their old stains. A phone in your palm shows $500 billion cold against your knee. The banker waits in the hall, and even his shoes have stopped moving. You leave the yacht brochure closed and choose the whole machine instead. At dawn, you stand outside a dealer row where hoods wear different badges. A salesman unlocks a crossover for a family, and you count the hands involved. You follow a transport truck from the lot to a factory gate. The plant manager meets you at the turnstile, hard hat tucked under one arm. Inside stamping, you feel the floor punch upward with every door skin. A press line does not sell cars. A press line eats steel by the coil. You walk past body and white shells, each one waiting for welds and wiring. Robot arms spark around you, and one platform suddenly looks like a skeleton. The plant manager points to a shared crash structure and kills the romance.
You understand the trick. Sedans, crossovers, vans, and pickups share bones. At the clay studio, you stand over one roofline and see 4 models hiding. You enter the wind tunnel, and smoke threads reveal where pennies escape. A launch engineer holds a tablet showing $6,000 spread per finished crossover. You do not chase sticker price. You chase the gap left after pain. At final assembly, a torque gun snaps under a worker's gloved wrist. A production associate shows you a pay stub marked $40,000 to $100,000 a year. The worker returns to the door line, and the conveyor never slows. You cross into paint, where white bodies disappear into sealed booths. A paint shop operator checks orange peel, and one bad panel delays the row. The plant manager stops near the Anden cord because one pull can bleed hours. You learn that warranty starts before a buyer ever smells the cabin. At the quality wall, red tags hang from seats, lamps, and battery trays.
You stand among red tags, and every tag looks like a future apology. A skilled trades technician unlocks a robot cabinet with grease on one sleeve. The robot technician carries overtime on his face and keeps the weld cell alive. A plant superintendent shows a phone reading $120,000 to $300,000 a year. You nod once, because missed volume can eat every bonus in the room. Outside the supplier gate, forklifts bring seats and the order cars arrive. A purchasing manager stands with you and stares down a late glass truck. You learn volume turns begging into command when suppliers hear the badge. At the tire warehouse, stacked rubber towers above you in black columns. A delay in rubber can idle a line louder than a strike. You ride the rail spur past auto racks waiting with open metal mouths. Finished cars cannot pay anyone until freight, incentives, and credit clear. At the dealer desk, you stand behind a buyer choosing the monthly payment.
The window sticker matters less once the finance screen starts asking questions. A finance clerk turns a monitor toward you showing $27,000 financed. You see the hidden engine. Interest keeps working after the keys leave. In the captive finance office, signed retail installment contracts fill rolling cages. You walk between rolling cages and hear paper heavier than engine blocks. A lease manager circles residual value on a tablet, and the car is not done. The returned SUV waits in a fenced lot, clean enough to sell twice. You follow the returned SUV into a certified pre-owned auction lane. Bidders raise cards near you, and the old loan finds a second buyer. A dealer principal shows floor plan cars parked nose to tail behind the showroom. You learn dealers borrow against inventory before customers ever choose colors. A clerk seals floor plan packets in plastic tubs, and you stand by the scale. Insurance add-ons, lease fees, and resale margins cling to one VIN plate. You stop at the warranty claim bin, where failed modules lie like evidence. Every bad module charges the badge again, and you can see the bite. At the battery plant, you enter the dry room in a white suit. Coated cells pass through formation racks, turning chemistry into future bargaining power. You stand near high-voltage bays and understand why battery supply scares chiefs. A chief engineer lays one motor module beside a truck drawing. You leave the plant knowing the car is only the front door. The next door is a silent assembly works at the rail spur. You bring advisors through the gate, and weeds scrape their polished shoes. A factory chief meets you by the guardhouse, his badge turned inward. You hear nothing from the final line, which makes the price possible. In the stamping hall, your lawyers count idle dies instead of promises. You bring union counsel onto the floor, and the old steward stops pacing. The seller wants a rescue story, so you give him a calendar.
A purchase agreement in your hands carries $2 billion in black ink. You fund the deal through stacked installment contracts sealed beside a VIN stamper. The former owner passes you the master production code, and his wrist shakes. You take the factory chief into the body shop before anyone celebrates. Paint ovens restart first, because rust kills a comeback faster than debt. A maintenance electrician walks with you past silent carriers and marked lockouts. You approve overtime meals in the canteen, and helmets fill the tables. The first bare shell reaches E-coat, and nobody speaks over the splash. You make the badge earn its way back onto metal. At the rail spur, workers couple auto racks to the first outbound load. A parts buyer refuses your calls, so you visit the seat supplier yourself. The seat supplier's loading bay fills by dawn, and you stand in the lane. You guarantee volume with a gloved handshake, not a speech.
A glassmaker demands cash up front, and your treasurer brings sealed bank bags. You walk the tire warehouse floor as pallets roll toward your reopened line. The local cluster begins with forklifts, not slogans. A regional sales director joins you inside a rented operations room. You point to unsold sedans in storage and cut the build mix. At the proving ground, camouflaged prototypes lap until brake rotors glow. A launch crew applauds one clean crash sled, and you stay quiet. Quality inspectors bring you scratched trim, because cheap fixes still bleed later. You order the trim supplier replaced, and the rejected bins vanish by morning. The first resistance comes from an engine works owner across the county. His boardroom door closes on you, leaving your counsel in the corridor. A rival's letter reaches your car, offering the engine works owner more. You do not match the letter. You buy the casting supplier upstream. Foundry workers keep pouring blocks, and the engine works owner loses excuses. The engine works closes on Friday, with you seated opposite him. A dynamometer cell screams through the night, and your new crankshafts hold. You fold the transmission shop next, because gears decide warranty pain. One foreman keeps his apron on during closing, and the room believes him. You put skilled trades back onto the shift board before the paint dries. State inspectors tour the technical training center, and you sit through every drill. A purchasing director lays common fasteners across your palm, asking for one standard. You hate the compromise, but one bolt feeds 4 bodies. The next fight is meaner. A battery pack campus owner chooses a foreign bidder and empties your conference table. Your convoy returns past the dark pack campus with no escort. Suppliers stop returning lunch invitations, and the launch calendar loses its slack. You keep the assembly works running on older packs, burning cash by the shift. A held term sheet for $25 billion reaches you inside a supplier jet. You refuse the jet champagne and demand the dry room contractor instead. The contractor brings coated sample cells in a steel case, and you inspect them. Pack campus gates open only when you accept the seller's pension guarantees. That concession hurts, and the workers know exactly why you paid. You close the pack campus with a cafeteria full of families watching. Regional trucking lanes change first. Transporters line up at your receiving dock. A parts depot adds your emblem to return crates, and mechanics stop guessing. You place a software support crew above the service bays. The export yard gives you your first glimpse of scale, steel parked to the water. You walk between rows of identical hoods, knowing the real build has just begun. The national map stops looking like dots when you enter the franchise war room. You pin the coastal showroom chain, and the room goes quiet. You corner the seller by taking the service contracts he still needs. A regional sales director joins you at a glass showroom, watching technicians swap service signs. You let the public see service vans change routes before any press quote. By noon, rival salesmen face quiet phones, and you are in their lobby. You buy the captive finance arm through a held phone flashing $900 million. A credit clerk rolls carts of retail installment contracts past you for custody. You sit among lease return keys sorted by model, seeing cars come back twice. The auctioneer drops his hammer, and your finance chief nods from your row. In Atlanta, you take the fleet desk from a rental giant. Airport shuttle drivers collect keys from your staff, not the old rep. You force the van program into police livery, municipal orange, and courier gray. The purchasing chief lays crushed price tags on your table, and you approve the cut.
A tire warehouse changes shifts after midnight, and you walk the loading lane. You get volume the clean way, one recurring order at a time. Next comes the national service chain, greasy, stubborn, and impossible to ignore. A franchise lawyer blocks you in a hotel corridor with a restraint letter. You answer by buying the training college that certifies his technicians. Graduates file past your chair carrying torque guns and service tablets. The lawyer returns to court alone, and the corridor cameras catch his face. You inherit the waiting rooms, the coffee machines, and the repair bays. A parts runner scans your crate label, and the old queue bends around him. You redirect scarce infotainment chips to models with the longest order lists. The vehicle program chief meets you at the wind tunnel before dawn. Clay crossovers roll past your shoes, each one cut from a shared platform. You kill 3 vanity trims, and designers stare at the scraped clay. Cruel choices make cleaner metal. At the proving ground, your pickups tow dyno trailers until brake rotors glow. You make the engineers run the cheap sedan on the rough loop too. A journalist films the cracked bumper, and your team replaces the clip before lunch. The rival luxury marque thinks loyalty can hold the line. You put your finance offers in the showroom window, and foot traffic shifts. A salesperson in a black suit folds his brochure as you pass. Then the cell materials port tries to choke you. Dock cranes idle above containers, and you face the harbor director in rain. He grants priority to a rival carrier, and your convoy waits outside the gate. For 3 days, empty module racks sit at your trim hall. You pay for a dedicated berth, and the rival carrier sails half empty. That scar stays visible in the freight budget. You do not celebrate. You send procurement into nickel, graphite, and copper. A smelter foreman walks you past glowing billets and asks for longer terms.
You give the smelter volume, and your cell line gets predictable feedstock. The next prize is Shanghai, and the room already knows the price will bite. City officials tour the model shop, and you take the back row. A local partner demands control of the design studio door. You refuse in public, and translators stop moving their pens. The permit packet disappears from the conference table before dessert. For weeks, Shanghai workers weld trial bodies for someone else's prototype. Your export chief brings photos of rival camouflaged cars rolling past the gate. You buy the partner's tooling debt, but the permit still stays cold. Only a battery safety lab concession cracks the door. The lab staff test your pack firewalls, and you sit through the burn. Shanghai grants the build hall after the smoke clears from the test bay. You walk the design studio aisle, and Clay City cars face both coasts. Back home, union negotiators demand national recall guarantees before high-volume shifts.
You meet them in the training center, surrounded by cutaway steering columns. The agreement costs real cash, but absent workers return to the line. A convoy of finished SUVs rolls toward railcars, and you ride the lead transporter. You reach the port before sunrise, riding past auto racks packed nose to tail. A dock foreman waves your carrier ship into berth, and export crews move faster. You no longer chase one market, you decide which market waits. In the Asian command room, your engineers pin crash data beside Clay sketches. You approve a second high-roof van program, and courier fleets crowd the demonstration bay. A purchasing lawyer lowers a held term sheet for $25 billion in cell supply. You tour the dry room gallery, sealed in white gear above coated copper rolls. Formation racks blink for hours, and your technicians keep forklifts away from sparks. You want the chemistry locked before competitors can beg for leftovers.
The cell complex gate changes hands quietly, guarded by test mules in camouflage. Across the proving oval, your mule truck drags trailers until brake rotors glow. A regional trucking boss studies your pickup prototype and cancels a competitor order. You send the dealer council cutaway dashboards instead of promises. In a hotel ballroom, franchise families inspect VIN plates spread along linen tables. You keep the lending arm out front, and bankers follow the allocation board. Lease return sedans fill a fenced yard, and your auctioneer calls bids from the lane. A clerk seals thick packets of retail installment paper while you count car keys. You need desire next, not more sheet metal. Maranello refuses your delegation at the security gate before the espresso cools. A red tow truck carries a covered mule past you without slowing. You wait outside the Fiorano fence, and photographers catch your empty chair.
The First Family Trust chooses a smaller Italian consortium, and your jet leaves light. For 3 days, your design chiefs work under tarps in a Modena wind tunnel. A retired racer joins your dinner table and sketches customer names on linen. You buy the carbon fiber autoclave shop upstream, and Maranello suddenly misses parts. The Italian consortium keeps the gate closed, so your GT prototype laps alone. Collectors notice the lap time, and red baseball caps gather at your paddock ropes. Maranello calls only when the autoclave ovens sit booked through race season. You accept a preservation covenant, and the old assembly room keeps its hand-built benches. A brass horse leaves the reception desk in a guard's gloved hands. Your emblem arrives on the transporter door, smaller than tradition demands. Inside Maranello, you walk past red shells hanging over final trim. A master mechanic stamps a serial plate, and your counsel stays out of reach.
You do not flatten the legend. You feed the machine. Your Tonr glass partner extends windshields to the exotic line without a speech. At Monza, owners queue for allocation cards near your temporary hospitality truck. The European studio stops drawing fantasy coupes and starts cutting shared switchgear. You fly north to a cold-weather track where electric vans pull sleds cleanly. A Scandinavian postal buyer climbs into your cab and nods at the heater. The old German marque sues over grill shape, and cameras fill the courthouse stair. Your legal team brings clay sections, crash noses, and airflow smoke photographs. The judge releases the injunction, and transporter loads cross the border before lunch. You fund a Spanish small car factory conversion, and local mayors crowd the gate. A weld cell trainer teaches new hires through your translated work instructions. The parts depot in Antwerp runs overnight, packing modules for 3 nameplates. You walk the mezzanine, and barcode scanners chirp like insects below. In Brazil, your pickup line adds reinforced frames for mining fleets. A dealer from Nairobi studies dust filters beside your field engineers. Middle Eastern fleet offices send armored sedan orders through your allocation desk. You put the credit arm in each market before the cars arrive. At a desert proving loop, rental operators circle your vans with flashlights. The warranty claim bin shrinks, and technicians cheer over returned steering racks. You reopen the Italian auction lane for certified coupes, and bidders lift paddles. A lease-return Ferrari rolls past you, earning twice before leaving the tent. Your command office turns noisy when ocean weather delays 3 carrier ships. You reroute rail wagons inland, and dock crews clear space for arriving metal. A held board packet shows per-car earnings multiplied by deliveries, reaching $200 billion. At dawn, you stand above a city-sized port where one emblem covers cars, trucks, rail wagons, carrier decks, and roads pouring outward.